Okay, so today we are going to be looking at a couple things jewelry related. First off, let's start with the gold, silver, platinum, and palladium price for the day per ounce. The gold price per ounce today, as of August 31st, 2025, is $3,463.30. For silver, it's $39.98 per ounce. Platinum is $1,385.90 per ounce. Palladium is $1,141.10 per ounce, which is a drop of $19.90 or 1.71% as of the past week. For today's watch of the day, it will be the Omega Speedmaster Dark Side of the Moon 44.25mm black ceramic on alligator leather strap. Beautiful watch. It is about 17 grand. Now, for the question, is it worth replating with rhodium? In my opinion, it is not, as rhodium, especially white rhodium, can be very expensive, and depending on the size of the piece you want to replate, it takes a lot of money. Sterling silver is a better option for white gold plating, or platinum or palladium. However, rhodium is generally considered the most prestigious and best option for white gold. However, if you cannot afford rhodium, you should definitely consider sterling silver, platinum, or palladium. Now let's discuss today's topic of the day, black rhodium. Is black rhodium worth the investment? No, it's not worth the investment at all. It is a poor investment, as rhodium in general is more expensive than other metals for plating, other white metals that you can plate with. It is very rare, very precious. However, it does not hold its value, unlike gold or silver. So, it is a poor choice to invest in. Which is why, as previously said, I would recommend just using platinum, palladium, or silver as a plating option if you cannot afford rhodium. Now, of course, black rhodium is different, because black rhodium, as compared to white rhodium, which gives a sense of elegance, black rhodium gives a sense of grittiness and unappreciated beauty. I would consider this worth it for more appearance purposes. However, when it comes to white rhodium, it's better for white gold plating specifically, and I would recommend, of course, if you can't afford white rhodium for your white gold, to just use palladium, silver, or platinum. Black rhodium, however, does give a good contrast, especially on cable chains and Franco chains. I think it looks nice. Cuban links, not so much. Curb chains, like the one I currently have on, it can definitely work for curb chains, but I wouldn't recommend it. Maybe flat curb chains would work better than round curb chains, but of course, that's just my opinion. Now, ask any jeweler what they will tell you is that black rhodium is not a good investment. Neither is white rhodium. However, black rhodium is good for giving a different sense, a different appearance, a different feel. Whereas white rhodium, it's used for white gold plating, which is why I recommend, if you do use white gold, to get rhodium plating if you can afford it, specifically white rhodium plating. However, if you can't afford it, it is completely fine to use palladium, platinum, or silver, which are cheaper. And if you really can't afford palladium or platinum, just use silver. It's fine. Now to discuss today's secondary topic. Are diamonds really worth it, or should you invest in moissanite? Well, we're going to be using three different stones that look very similar: cubic zirconia, moissanite, and diamond. Cubic zirconia is very affordable and is an 8.5 on the Mohs hardness scale. Very affordable, shines decently well, looks the part, but it can cloud up easily, especially during everyday use and everyday wear. And it tends to not reflect white light as well unless you're in a darker space. Whereas moissanite looks beautiful, gets the job done, is almost exactly identical to a diamond, but it's not a diamond. Now, moissanites are more expensive than cubic zirconia, but cheaper than diamonds. Of course, moissanite, you should. It is a replacement for a diamond, absolutely. However, it is not a replacement for the money that goes into the diamond. Now, the money and effort that a diamond consumes is worth the money. And the diamond, compared to the moissanite, a moissanite is definitely an option for those who can't afford diamonds, but diamonds are a great option if you want to spend a little more money. Now, for diamonds, we have two types of diamonds: lab and natural. Now, lab are cheap, affordable, and literally the exact same as natural diamonds, except for a tiny part of the structure, which can only be detected by hugely expensive, and I'm talking hugely expensive, machines that take a ton of money. Now, with lab diamonds, you can get the same size as a natural diamond but not spend as much money. Whereas with natural diamonds, it's more of a, well, showing off thing, more of a flex. It is very nice, don't get me wrong, but it takes up a lot of resources and effort and money, time, all of that to get a natural diamond, which is why it's much more expensive. So, it really doesn't matter what kind of diamond you pick because at the end of the day it's a diamond and they're identical other than a tiny piece of the chemical structure, or not the chemical structure, I'm sorry, the physical structure. A tiny piece of that. The internal structure, a tiny piece of the internal structure. A tiny piece of the internal structure, which can only be detected, as previously mentioned, by extremely expensive machines and a team of experts. Now, natural and lab, if you want to show off a bit more money, I'd get natural. If you want to just have a diamond and say you have a diamond, I'd get lab. Now, for one final thing, is gold plating worth it on brass? Yes and no. It depends. Do you want to have gold on your jewelry? Then you should go for the gold plating. But if you would prefer solid or hollow gold or even gold filled, then you should drop more of that money onto that rather than plating it. Because hollow, solid, and gold filled holds its value better than gold plated. Gold plated doesn't have much value, whereas gold filled, hollow gold, and solid gold hold their value. And if you get any of those, they are going to hold their value a lot better. They're going to have a better resale price. But if you get gold plated, well, it's a great thing for flexing, but it's not really anything for investing. That is about it for today. Goodbye, and I will see you tomorrow in another episode.